Hello, hello, hello. Are you guys hearing me? If you are hearing me properly, can you please raise your hand? Uh, if you hear me properly, I'm going to lower everybody's hand and I'm going to ask you all to raise your hand if you can hear me properly. Everybody, please raise your hands if you can hear me properly. I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. Because I just started the broadcast and oddly enough, it didn't signal to me that the broadcast had started. One of these odd little kerfuffles. But so anyway, let me just hang on just a second. I want to make sure that everything is going properly. Please excuse this slight delay while I check um, that the recording is going properly and such. Because like as you recall, I think on number 3, the recording didn't work out, and so I had to redo it. That was fine, but I just want to make sure, double sure that everything is recording and everything is hunky dory, and it seems to be so. And so off we go. Let me just there we go. We are live. And today we're going to be talking about how to pick a wife. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining me as always. It's a real privilege and pleasure to be talking to you all. I thank you so much for supporting me on this platform on Patreon. And I just want to thank you because to tell you the truth, I love doing streams and webinars. I really enjoy it because it makes me think about things that I perhaps had not thought about that carefully, especially with this whole thing of me getting questions from you and you guys like commenting and posting what you would like me to talk about. I really, really love that interaction. So thank you so much. Thank you so very much. And let me just, by the way, do you guys all have your microphones properly plugged in and configured? Because I am going to take questions and comments at the end as always. And it's always so disappointing when somebody has their hand raised and they probably have a good question or a good comment. And I go to them, I click on them, and their mic isn't configured or it's not working properly. So please make sure that you have it configured properly. So, okay, let's take off insofar as today's webinar. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. We are going to be talking about how to pick a wife, which between several people, there was Dimitri, there was Will Ruan, there was Mattis. Between everybody, it was like about 30 people, 30 thumbs up between those 3 people who roughly asked the same questions. However, everybody wants me to talk about this, so fine. It's actually something that I considered doing before. I had in my notebook of topics to do for a webinar, and so here we are. So yeah, before we get started, I want to do a quick recommendation. Before we get started into the main topic of how to pick a wife, this book, Why We Sleep. Now, you guys know that I am, an obsessive reader. I read roughly between 50 and 100 pages per day. Well, that's not true. I usually read about 50 pages every day, and on the weekends or like my break day, that's when I read 100 pages per day. Today is my break day, and today so far I've read about 120 pages. And so all in all, I wind up reading about between 400 and 500 pages a week. Uh, I, love books. I love learning new things. I love fiction. I love nonfiction, history, philosophy, current science, everything. As of late, as of the last few months, I've been on this kick of reading what the latest science is saying about different topics that interest me. For instance, a little while back, I read a book called How to Change Your Mind, which is about the emerging science of using psychedelic drugs to treat mental illness. Very, very interesting. I also read a book called Dinosaurs Rediscovered that talks about the current state of knowledge insofar as dinosaurs is concerned. Fascinating. That book, incidentally, I bought it for my kid who's 5 and loves dinosaurs, right? And I wound up reading it to him, parts of it to him, but he liked looking at the drawings and stuff like that. But I enjoyed the text so much that I wound up getting my own copy because he wouldn't lend it to me. The little shit. But anyway, yeah, it was very worthwhile reading Dinosaurs Rediscovered. But this book, Why We Sleep, it has had an effect on my life right now for the better. And that's why I want to talk to you about it. I'm going to take just a few minutes to talk about it before we dive into the main topic of today's webinar. I think that this book is very, very important. I highly recommend it. I mean, I cannot recommend it enough. Let me put it to you that way. And hand to heart, I think you'd be a fool not to read this book. Okay? I'm that serious about it. And I'm not one to go around calling, my own audience fools unless I'm very, very serious about this. This book, I think, is incredibly useful because it explains several things that are very important. Now, Matthew Walker, he is a neurobiologist, okay, or a neuroscientist rather. He's a big brain. He's a Brit. He went to universities in England and then got a PhD in Harvard, and now he's a full tenured professor at Berkeley, okay? And yeah, they're commies out in Berkeley, but this isn't, political. This is a book about sleeping, about how important it is. And he goes into a great deal of detail about the different stages of sleep, what each stage represents, why they matter, what dreaming is all about. And the thing is, see, all of the things that he discusses in his book are relatively recent discoveries that have been clinically tested. And this is the state of science insofar as sleeping is concerned. And the bottom line is, if you are not getting 8 hours of sleep, you should do everything in your power to get it, because you need 8 hours of sleep, not 5, not 4. And this notion that you can get by on 4 or 3 hours or something stupid like that, it's only going to hurt you. And I was one of those people who thought, oh, I can get by on 5, 6 hours of sleep, no big deal. But reading this book, he explained why those additional hours are actually the most important. The final hours of sleeping is when you have the highest amount of REM sleep. REM is REM, rapid eye movement sleep, and that's when you dream. But more important than that, science has now discovered that what's going on during dreaming is that you are making new pathways between the new information that you have acquired. There's NREM sleep, that is NREM sleep, non-REM sleep, which is basically when you're sleeping, and during that period of time, your short-term memory is transferred over to your long-term memory. It's the way that people make new memories, because short-term memory is in your hippocampus and the long-term memory is in your frontal cortex. And during the night, during the NREM sleep stage, you basically transfer those memories. And a lot of those memories are thrown away because they're memories that don't really matter. Like, to give a typical example, you forget whether you locked your door when you left earlier yesterday and then came back and unlocked the door and walked in, because that memory is trivial. It's not important. Okay, it's of course a memory that you have because you remember when you locked the door when you left your house. You remember when you unlocked the door when you came back from your work or school or whatever. You have a memory, but that memory is not important. And it's during this time that you forget a lot of the memories that are inconsequential, and you'll hold on to memories that are consequential. For instance, some interaction you might have had with somebody, or perhaps some schoolwork that you were learning or whatnot. And so you have NREM sleep, which is memory transfer. And then you have REM sleep. That's when you basically take all this new information and start plugging it into previous information that you had. And Walker describes this process in a fascinating way. He explains that there are several cycles of going between NREM sleep and REM sleep. It's not that you have only NREM sleep at one time and then only dreaming, i.e. REM sleep, at a later stage. No, you cycle through it, and these cycles are roughly 90 minutes to 2 hours. And during these cycles at the beginning of the night, you have mostly NREM sleep, where you transfer memories, and only a little bit of REM sleep. But after the first cycle and the second cycle, it's a little bit more REM sleep, a little bit less NREM sleep, until at the end of the night, at the end of your 8 hours of sleeping, it's mostly REM sleep. And that's the most important time, because at that time you make the most connections and you acquire the most restfulness. It's the most effective sleeping at the end. And it's the end that we're cutting. In my own case, what had been happening to me, and the reason I purchased this book, is that I was going to sleep no problem, but I was waking up at ungodly hours, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and I wasn't going to sleep. And this kind of insomnia, I was in a bad mood the rest of the day, or I was not productive or whatnot. It was just, it was affecting my life. And I purchased this book on a whim. I saw it in a bookstore, and I thought, why not? And I'm so glad I purchased it. That's why I'm going on and on and on and boring you to tears on this particular issue before we get to the main topic of discussion. Please read this book. It talks about how to get good sleep, why sleeping pills are the worst thing that you can take. It talks about other things that are really interesting about how young people naturally, their circadian rhythm, that is the rhythm that tells them when to go to sleep and when to wake up, in adolescence especially, it moves to a later time, and there's a clear evolutionary reason why. I'm not going to get into it because it's a little bit involved, but it's really fascinating information. It's written very, very well, very easy to read, incredibly valuable information. I urge you to read it. Don't be foolish. This will be something that really, really helps you. I read it and I started following the guidelines as soon as I started reading it about a month ago. And I've been keeping a sleep diary to make sure that I'm getting enough sleep every night. And because of this little act of and the little tricks and the little tips that he gives you so as to get 8 hours of sleep, I'm sleeping much, much better, and it's positively impacting my life. I can see the positive effects in my life. And so that's why I'm telling you guys, read this book. I cannot emphasize it enough. I'll end it there. I mean, you've been told, okay? Don't tell me later like, oh, I didn't know. No, you've been told. This is a great book. Definitely read it. Okay. So let's go back to the main subject of discussion, which is, of course, how to pick a wife. Yeah, and I think that this is an important subject. And I think that obviously a lot of other guys think the same thing because, like I said before earlier, there were 30 thumbs up to the 3 guys who asked this question, 33 thumbs up to the 3 guys who asked this question. It was Mattis, and I'm giving the hat tip to Mattis. It was also Will Ruan and Dimitri. And they all asked the variations of it. For instance, Dimitri asked when to have kids, early versus late, humanism versus Chinese system. But it's basically, the issue of children. Will Ruan, how to raise children and get the right wife. Mattis, how to pick the mother of your children so she's not crazy, which is very important, as I'm sure you will agree. Okay, so let's get into it. Now, here's the thing that you have to understand when you're thinking about a long-term relationship. Okay. See, people talk about love. Oh, I'm in love with somebody. I love this person. I love this person and I want to live my life with them, or I love this person, I want to fuck their brains out. That's very different now, isn't it? Desire is different from companionship, and it's different from having shared goals. And I've been giving this a lot of thought, and ultimately I realized that there are 3 components to love. The first is desire, physical desire, finding the other person sexy, finding the other person somebody that you want to fuck. That's the first one, and that's the easiest because you see all around you women that you find very attractive, and women in turn see all around them men that they find physically attractive. But it's not going to help you to find a wife, okay? Or let me phrase it. It's not the only component when you're looking for a wife. The other component is the issue of companionship, complicity. The French use the word complicity an awful lot, and it's a really great word because complicity is sort of like you're a gang of 2. And this is very important because, see, a lot of times you can find somebody really, really sexy and just want to boff their brains out. But once you've boffed their brains out, there's nothing to talk about. You're just sitting there with them and you think that, well, she's very hot and she was a great lay, but she's just dull as dishwater, And yeah, that happens all the time. It happened to me. When I was living in New York as a younger guy, when I was like 30, 32, I moved to New York City, and some of you might know this because I've talked about it before. I hooked up with some peoples. I had some friends who were plugged into whole fashion scene. And little old me, with glasses and gawky and geeky, wound up sitting there in some bar in the middle of a fucking, party for models, and the place was lousy with models, and even a loser fuckstick like me could wind up picking up a model, which I did, And a couple of times I had little flings with models. Actually, I dated a few for quite a while, as a matter of fact. But the point is, see, I rapidly discovered that I could find somebody incredibly attractive, just sexy as can be. But after I shot my wad, I didn't want to be around her, right? And yeah, raise your hands if that's happened to you at some point, that you like fuck some girl that you were crazy about, and once you blew your wad in her, you're like, I don't really want to be around her. I want to go home. Oh my goodness, I see all the hands raising. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. You see, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. And those of you who haven't experienced this, trust us. This happens all the time. Okay. So you have to think to yourself that what makes a long-lasting relationship is not merely desire. That's just the first step. The second step, very important step, is the issue of companionship, of complicity, of liking to hang out with one another. How many times has this happened to you? It's probably happened to you more often with guys, friends of yours. You don't want to fuck them or let alone marry them, just friends that you have. What happened to me yesterday or a couple of days ago? I was talking to a friend of mine, a YouTuber, Red Pill Germany, who's a fantastic guy. And we had a lovely conversation. We're talking about this, that, the other. And all of a sudden, we somehow the conversation of the Terminator movie started coming up. Okay. And we went into this weird, or not weird, this very long and intense conversation about the Terminator movies and James Cameron and Aliens and Alien, the first one. And what happened was that we both agreed that the first Terminator movie, not Terminator 2, but the first Terminator was the best one. Because, yeah, it had lousy special effects. It looked kind of cheap. I mean, I remember watching it in the theater when it came out, and I thought it was cheap at the time. But it's a terrific story. It's a fantastic story. And Terminator 2 is just a rehash of that story with better special effects. It has the same exact beats as the first one, but you know, it's not a new story. But the first one, that was original, that was interesting. It had this incredible character development insofar as Sarah Connor is concerned, who starts off as this ditzy waitress and winds up like this real badass, but like with a heart and fear, and it was just fantastic, right? And we were talking about this, and this conversation that we had, um, how can I put this? In a non-gay way, it brought Red Pill Germany and me closer together, okay? We became better friends because of it. Because all these little things that you talk about with your friends, the things that interest you and that potentially interest him or her, those things bring you closer together. That builds companionship. And that's what you want to be doing with a woman. I mean, you want to be with a woman that you can talk about something that you really like. Or, for instance, what happened to me one time, I was dating this girl called Josefina. This was years ago. This is in Chile. And she was a lovely girl. And we were talking about movies and this and that. And at some point, somehow, it came up that she had never seen Apocalypse Now. She'd never even heard of it. And she was younger than me, and so there was a reason why she wouldn't have seen it. So I was like, what? So I went out and rented the movie, and we watched it together. And it just blew her away. I mean, I was there with her. She would like jump, you know, at different scenes, or when things happen, you know, like when they shoot up the village, right? So that the Robert Duvall character can go surfing, you know, all that crap, you know. She was just blown away by it. She thought it was unbelievable. And at the end of it, right, she was just like, wow, you know. So much so that, you know, we flipped around in some of the better scenes to rewatch them because they were so cool, because they are cool, because it's Apocalypse Now, right? But because of this, we built up a sense of complicity, a sense of companionship. And the fact that I had introduced her to something that really expanded her, that she was just thrilled by. And notice, see, when I went and got the movie, I didn't get, you know, like for instance, there's another movie I love called Barry Lyndon. Barry Lyndon is a fantastic picture, but the problem is that it's incredibly boring. See? See, I didn't go and get like Barry Lyndon. I went and got Apocalypse Now. And she hadn't heard of Barry Lyndon either. But the thing is, see, Barry Lyndon would have bored her, whereas Apocalypse Now would have entertained her. Now, when you're trying to build that kind of complicity with a woman, or with anybody, quite frankly, what you want to do is gauge what they would like. Just because you like it doesn't mean that they're going to like it. Doesn't mean that she's going to like it. And a lot of guys make this mistake. See, a lot of guys figure that just because they like something potentially very obscure, that somebody else is going to like it. And sometimes they get wrapped up in something that they really, really like, that's really, really obscure or complicated. I mean, it's not easy. And it just turns off a girl because it's too much information. It's too complicated. It's too much, right? So you have to do it like the breadcrumb approach. You don't show up with a giant finished pie, just little breadcrumbs. You see what I'm saying? And so that's how you build complicity, companionship, okay? You build it by way of things that you have in common. A lot of times, you're with a woman for a while, with a girlfriend for a while, and you're going out with her. You're going out with her, like, and you go here, you go there, and something will happen during that time, okay? Whatever incident, or you see something, right? And you see it, you both see it, you both notice it. And see, those moments, you want to latch on to them because those are the common moments between you and the woman that you're with. And that's how you build that companionship, that complicity, so that later, when you're with a woman, you're with this girlfriend, and you're, at a party or doing whatever with other people around, right? And something happens, you can look at her and say, oh, remember that time? And she'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that time. And see, that kind of complicity is essential, okay? Now, the third component of love between a man and a woman, is the issue of shared goals. Not shared values, shared goals. Now, let me explain why. See, because when you have a shared goal, you have a shared mountaintop, you have a vision that's the same or very similar, okay? Then you're going to be rowing at the same pace. You're going to be rowing in the same direction. But if you try to match each other's values, whatsoever those values may be, there's going to be constant negotiation. And negotiation, by definition, is full of friction. Yeah, because she has some set of values and you have a different set of values. Perhaps, for instance, you're an atheist and she's religious. You both want kids for different reasons, but she's very religious, say, and you're a total atheist. If you try to negotiate these values, it's going to break down. But if you ignore the values and focus on what you have in common, then you're both going to achieve it, okay? And more to the point, these differences that you will have won't interfere in both of you together achieving your ultimate goals, those shared goals of having children, for instance, having well-raised children, you see? If you try to square the circle insofar as she's a believer in her religion and you're not, and you just think that God is stupid, you're like I said, you're going to try to square the circle, and how's that going to end? It's going to end in failure, and you're going to lose a potentially good relationship. You find her hot as blazes. You want to fuck her brains out every night. You talk about movies and you show her new movies, and she shows you movies that you never heard of, or books or whatever, right? Because it's a two-way street, of course, right? And you have these shared memories, these shared insights that, later when something else happens, you're like, oh, remember that time? And she's like, yeah. And she says, you remember that time? And you're like, yeah, I remember. You have that complicity, you have that companionship, but you're trying to share values, quote unquote, and all falls apart. For what? For what purpose? You see? You have to have shared goals, okay? Now, of course, if you want to have children, and here I'm talking to guys here who said that, you want to have the mother of your children. It's not merely to have a girlfriend, merely to have a wife. The goal is to have children, okay? You got to find that out early, okay? Early enough that it's not a waste of your time, okay? I mean, within a month or 2 months. You don't bring it up in the first date. You don't say, hi, how's it going? Nice to meet you. I'm Tom, and you're Mary. Oh, nice to meet you, Mary. Hey, do you want to have 5 kids? Because that's what I want. No, you don't do that. Come on. What you have to do is you have to go out with her, try her out, because that's what's dating all that is what dating is all about. It's trying out the other person to see if they fit. Okay. Now, after a month or two, the topic will naturally emerge. And if you want to have children, I mean, that's what I'm assuming here, right? And she does too, you're golden, all set. Okay. And you're going to have a common goal. And you focus on that common goal. And you start thinking out loud what kind of life you want to have. You want to have kids, you want to have 2, 3, 4, 5. Personally, I think the more the merrier, of course, but that's me. Anyway, you figure out what you both want, okay? And again, if she wants 2 and you want 5, don't throw a hissy fit over it, because a lot of times on the road, you can push her in your direction. The important thing is that she does want kids if you want kids, assuming, okay? Now, those are the 3 components of love. And you can think of them as the 3 stages of love. There's desire, there's companionship, complicity, and then there's shared goals. Those are the 3 components of love between a man and a woman. Now, one of the things that people have asked is, how do you make sure that she doesn't cheat on you? I forgot to write down who asked this question. But yeah, it was asked. So sorry about that to the person who asked it. It slipped my mind here. I'm looking at my notes and I fucked up. But guys ask, how do you make sure that she doesn't cheat on you? Well, very simple, by the way. She has to know that you have options. Now, here's something that I'm actually going to be doing a video about it, and let me explain. See, women's friends will always hit on you. Simple as that, okay? Because, like your guy friends, you have guy friends. You're a guy, you have your friends, guy friends, right? They will never hit on your girl. If they ever do, they're an asshole and lose them. But for the most part, it's been my experience that most guys, when they see that their buddy has some girl, they just stand back. They never try to hit on her, okay? They never try to hit on her. That's been my experience with my friends and guys I've talked to. Yeah, it's like the rule, the code. You got your buddy has a girlfriend. You don't mess with the girlfriend. You don't hit on the girlfriend. That's wrong, right? And we all instinctively think that the buddy who hits on his pal's girlfriend is an asshole, and we don't want anything to do with it. I mean, it could be that I know John, right? And John, I hear, hit on Tom's girlfriend, and Tom and John were good friends. I'd be like, John, we're done. I don't want to be friends with you because you're going to start hitting on my girlfriend. So fuck off, right? I mean, that's what happens with guys, but girls, no. Girls, the friends of girls hit on the boyfriend all the fucking time, always. Sometimes they're real fucking subtle about it. Sometimes they're blatant as blazes. They always hit on the girlfriend's boyfriend, always. I don't understand it. Well, I do sort of understand it, because what happens is that, see, if you have a girlfriend, she's your girlfriend, and she takes you to meet her friends. She wants their approval, but at the same time, she is implicitly saying that you are good enough for her. And so the other women who are in her circle of friends automatically look at you as having passed an obstacle. You are compliant insofar as quality testing, if you will. I mean, to put it in sort of like manufacturing lingo, yeah, you have been quality inspected and you are found to be aces. That's why you're dating this girl. And so her friends, girlfriends, women friends, they will hit on you. Yeah. And a lot of times also it has to do with power dynamics, that one girl feels that she wants to best her friend by fucking the friend's boyfriend. It's all kinds of weird dynamics are going on with women, okay? And it happens all the fucking time. So the point of this, of what I'm saying is that, see, if you're dating a woman, you will have lots of opportunities for other women to hit on you, okay? And here's something else too that's key. When you are dating some girl and you are fucking her on the regular, you're much more relaxed. And when you interact with other women, you're much more relaxed and calm. You're not desperate. Of course you're not desperate. You're getting laid. You're getting laid on the regular. And so when you interact with anybody else, you'll be calm and relaxed. You'll be funny. You'll be charming. And you won't be like creepy charming. You'll be genuinely charming. Because of course we all know it when we're like, we haven't been dating for like a long time, or I haven't gotten laid in a long time, right? And we try to hit on some girl, and we feel how creepy we come across, how awkward and bad we come across. And it happens to everybody. And by the way, it happens at all stages. Okay. Uh, Now I'm 52. I remember like last year, I was sort of like, went through a period of just like not really dating anybody. And I hit on some girl one time, and I just came across, I could feel how cringy I came across. Okay. And then later with more practice, it's smoothed out, but it happens. It happens to everybody. Okay. So what happens is that when you are dating somebody, you're going to feel a lot more relaxed, a lot more confident, a lot more fluent. It'll be just easier. And so because of that, women will hit on you. They'll sense it. And what you want to do is you want to flirt with some girl, but not so blatantly that your girlfriend says you were flirting with her. You just want to be like nice enough and friendly enough that it could be misinterpreted as flirting, or it could be interpreted as simply just chatting. Okay. And that's what you want to be doing. Oops. Um, hang on. I think I fucked up here. I did something. Oh no, we're all good. Okay, so that's what you want to be doing. You want to be not flirting. Okay, that's how you would call it. You are flirting, but not flirting. It's flirting with plausible deniability, and always in her presence, or not necessarily in her presence, like right there in front of her, but she's got to be aware of it somehow. You know, um, if some girl calls you up from like work, let her pick up the phone, okay? Because this is what's going to happen. Like for instance, suppose you're dating Mary, right? And some woman at work starts, sort of like sidling up to you and making, batting her eyes at you and just being nice to you, right? Uh, Set it up so that this girl at work, say Joan, calls you to your cell at home when you're with Mary. And when you sort of like expect, Joan to call up, let Mary pick up the phone. Okay. Let Mary, and you're going to be like, oh, Joan is just calling me because of some work shit, right? Not to flirt with you, of course, but it's just some work shit. And Mary is going to get upset with you. Okay. And what you have to do is stay firm and just basically say, I didn't do anything, because of course you didn't. Yeah. Joanne called you at home on your cell phone, and Mary picked it up. I mean, you'll tell her, look, if I was doing something bad, why would I tell you to pick it up? Huh? This is totally innocent. It's just this work thing. And what'll happen is, of course, Mary will be pissed off because she'll be insecure. Okay? And you have to understand, women, when they get pissed off, more often than not, it's out of insecurity. Let me phrase that. When they're pissed off at you, it's because of insecurity. Okay? And they're nervous that they might lose you. And Joanne at work, you describe her a little bit. Oh yeah, she's all right. She's sort of like skinny, blonde, tall. She's all right. Oh, you see, you highlight the good bits of Joan, whatsoever good bits she has, and you tell Mary, your girlfriend, but you do it casual. You don't make it a to-do. You never volunteer information. You only answer questions. Okay? And what's the point of all this mind game playing, right? The whole point of it is so that she knows that you have options. You can be with other women. You don't need her. You choose to be with her. But of course, you can choose not to be with her. And that's what she's going to be thinking. And that's why this matters. Because, see, a woman who believes that her man has options, she's never going to be thinking of cheating on him. She's never going to be thinking of like finding somebody better. She's going to be low level insecure that he will find somebody better and leave her. And that's the position you want to be in insofar as your girlfriend. No matter how long she has been your girlfriend, no matter how long she has been your wife, she has to know that you have options. Not think, not suspect, know. Now, this is not an issue of like you going out and blatantly cheating on your girlfriend and rubbing her nose in the fact. No, 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 no. It's subtle. It's letting her know that you're a good boy, you haven't fucked around on her, but you can whenever you want to. And it's basically telling her, I can fuck around whenever I want to, so don't give me a reason to want to fuck around. You see? That's how it works. That's how you hold on to a long-term relationship. The guys who are like these really dependable guys who will never cheat on their girlfriend, right? And make it really clear to her all the time, the girl cheats on him because he's no challenge. Because women need a challenge. Women, they fundamentally need to feel insecure. It's just weird, right? Because a guy doesn't want to feel insecure. A guy wants to feel confident and secure. And he assumes that a woman wants the same thing. Women don't want that. They want to feel insecure. They want to feel nervous. They want to feel that the relationship that they have. I have a little thing here, a notice saying that the audio went bad. Do you guys hear me? Please raise your hand real quick if you hear me okay. You guys are hearing me okay? Okay, good. Sorry about that. It just it gave me a little notice, and so I figure something might be up. But glad that that's not the case. So anyway, going back to this particular issue, she has to know that you have options, and that is how you guarantee a long-lasting relationship. Whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's a wife, I'm telling you, that's how it is. Okay? Okay, so the next stage about how to find a woman, how to find a wife. What is the point of dating? Why do you date? You are trying people out. That's what you're doing. You're trying people out to see what fits. Okay? Now, let me ask you something. You wear clothes, right? I'm assuming that you do. I'm assuming that you're not walking around naked all day, right? If you're walking around naked all day, I'm here to tell you that that is not done. But of course, you're wearing clothes. Now, how do you change clothes? How do you change your outfit? Huh? Think about it. I mean, how do you go from one look to another look? Well, you wear something, whatever it is. You woke up in the morning, you were wearing your pajamas, right? And you decided that you're going to go jogging. So what do? You take off your pajamas and you put on shorts and a sports shirt and some socks, and you put on your running shoes, and off you go to go running, right? And you run for a bit, and then you come back, and what do? You take off your clothes, take a quick shower, of course, and then put on new clothes. So you're going from a set of clothes to a set of clothes to a set of clothes. You have pajamas, your running outfit, and then your suit and tie to go off to work or whatever, right? That's how you do it with girls, with women, with dating. You start off with PJs, and then you change into sports clothes, and then you change into work clothes. You don't like walk around naked and dive into a business suit. Or let me rephrase that, which is much better, a better way to put it. See, when you start, boxing, you start learning to box, right? You're going to get into the ring, right? Are you going to get into the ring with like Conor McGregor? Is that your first match? No, of course not. Your first match is going to be practices. You're going to practice with some guy who's probably as ignorant as you. And then after a while, a long while of practicing with not just that guy, but a lot of other guys, you're going to start fighting with somebody in a practice ring, with somebody who's a little better, perhaps a little better than you, right? And you're going to learn strategies to deal with a better fighter, a guy who's got more knowledge than you, and you're going to learn these strategies, and eventually you'll be able to go toe to toe with them. And then you're going to have your first pro fight. And your first pro fight, who's it going to be? Conor McGregor? No, it's going to be with some guy who's at your level. And then after that, you're going to go up and up and up, and eventually you're going to be fighting for the title with Conor McGregor, right? Okay, with women, what you're going to do is you got to try out low tier women first. Practice. A lot of guys, what they do foolishly is that they only date top tier women. This is a mistake. Or let me phrase it, because it's not that they date top tier women. They say that they will only date top tier women. And because of that, they don't date anyone. And so they don't acquire the experience, because you have to practice at a relationship. It's like everything in life. You can't pick up a guitar and play like Eddie Van Halen at the snap of a finger. You can't go into your first fight, never having fought before in your life, and get in the ring with Conor McGregor. No, you got to practice this shit. The same with women. You try out a low tier woman first, a woman who likes you, who wants you, and maybe you're indifferent to her, but you just take her on anyway. And you're always thinking that you're going to have a relationship with her. What is the objective that you're going to learn in this relationship? That's what you're thinking. You're going to be thinking to yourself, how to interact with a woman, how to have a good time with a woman. And you're going to do something else, which is pretty much of being a bastard, but it's necessary because this is survival of the fittest, and this is how it is. You're dating a low tier value woman, a low tier woman who's like, maybe she's fat, maybe she's not very pretty, maybe this, that, the other. Doesn't matter what it is. The only thing that you should avoid is older women, okay? You should always aim for younger women. But sometimes a little experiment with an older woman is fine, but make it short, is my point. Anyway, you date a low tier woman and you don't date her for 3 years. You date her for 2 months, 3 months. And by 2, 3, 4 months, you start seeing how you can leverage her for a better woman. Like I said before, when other women know that you're dating a woman, no matter how low tier she is, and this is a key issue, other women, better women, become attracted to you. And this is a truism, okay? And what you do is basically you leverage the girls that you are dating, the low tier women you're dating, you leverage her for somebody better. And the opportunities will just naturally come your way. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's the way it is. And the fact is, most low tier women, they're very worried about this because they know it. They know it comes. And a lot of times what happens is that, see, a guy who's a fairly decent looking guy who's got his shit together, maybe he's not that good looking, but he's got a good job or a good prospects, a good business, whatever. I mean, he's like higher tier. He starts dating a lower tier women and he doesn't realize that he can do better. She does. And she tries to lock him down. But he acts like a fucking retard and just like, oh yeah, I'm dating this girl and she seems great. And is he satisfied with everything that he wants from her? Probably not. But, he's figuring, well, this is the best I could get. No, it was the first one. You're with some girl and she's low tier and you can do better, and better women start approaching you because they'll be aware that you have a girlfriend, and automatically for some girls that's like, a magnet. Yeah, you leverage her for a better woman. And that better tier woman that you go, and the woman number 2, who's slightly higher on the sexual market totem pole, yeah, you're with her for a while and you experiment. You experiment in the sense of like, what do you want from a relationship? And you try to figure out what you want from her. And after a while, once you figure out what's what and you've gotten some mileage out of it, you trade it up. It's like trading up with cars. That was a better metaphor, actually. Yeah. You finish college and you have a clunker, right? And then you drive that clunker for a while, but you get money because of the clunker. You get to the job that pays you more money. And because of that more money, eventually you trade in that clunker for a better car. And then you have that mid-tier car for a while, and you make more money because of it, because that mid-tier car is getting you to your job and whatnot. And after a while, you get more money together and you trade in that mid-tier car for a high-end car. And that's how it works. And also what happens is that, see, when you're doing this, when you're going with a lower tier woman, lower tier than you, lower tier than you might have anticipated or wanted, right? But if you're going with her, it'll make you focus on what you want in the next girl. And so just because there is a next girl who's interested in you, you're not automatically going to go for her. Let me give you an example. Suppose you're going out with a fatty. She's a fat little porker, not like 500 pounds, but she's like chubby, right? She's like medium, yeah? and you're dating her, and she's pretty smart, and you have a good time, and it's okay. Okay, it's okay. And she's crazy about you because you're a higher tier guy than her, and she knows it. Okay, lower tier girls always know it. Okay, and so you're dating this low tier girl, and after a while, you meet some medium tier girl. But the medium tier girl that she's like really flirting with you, and she really wants to be with you. You know that you just have to call up this mid-tier girl. Let's call her mid-tier girl number one. And you just have to call her up, and you'll be banging her, and you can like drop the fatty that you're seeing and move in with this higher tier girl, right? Well, the thing is, see, this mid-tier girl number one, you realize that she's kind of like, maybe she's sort of stupid, or maybe she doesn't have the same interest, but there's no complicity, there's no like there's no meeting of the minds, as it were. The stage two that I discussed before, yeah, it's not there. Maybe you find her attractive, physically attractive, more than the hot, more than the fatty, rather. You find mid-tier girl number one more desirable, but you don't find her interesting. And see, what'll happen is that, see, since you're dating the low tier girl, and you have something in hand, bird in hand, right? You're not automatically going to go for this mid-tier girl that you don't really get along with. And so you will save yourself quite a bit of heartache, you see? Because if you were alone, if you had nobody, you're not getting laid, there's nobody in your life, and this mid-tier girl number one shows up, you'd be all over her, even though you don't really like her, you see? That's why it's so important, because you're going to have options if you have somebody, no matter how low tier. The low tier girl in your life will fulfill two functions. Number one, it will give you access to higher tier women, number one. And number two, it will prevent you from grabbing on to the first thing that comes along that might not be suitable for you. You see? Because you're going to be the low tier girl, and yeah, she's low tier, but you get along with her better than this mid tier girl who's hotter, but she's stupid, or she's boring, or she's just, you don't like her for whatever reason. You don't like her personality. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? That's why it's so important. You monkey branch. A lot of guys in the manosphere criticize women for doing this. Monkey branching being, like Tarzan going from one branch to the next, right? They never let go of the branch until they have the next one firmly in hand. You got to do the same thing. Girls do it. Why can't you do it? You're a human being, right? You're a human being. You walk and talk, and you've got thoughts and ideas, and you're not totally stupid or insane. Then do the same fucking thing, because it's of practical utility. Monkey branching works, or else people wouldn't do it, for crying out loud. Women, they have some boyfriend, whatever, and he's a great guy and whatever, but she finds somebody better, and so long, great guy, here's a much better guy, and she's off with him. And then she does it again and again, And often as not, the woman does it because what happens is that, see, the guy that she's with makes it real clear to her that he's never going to leave her. He's always going to be there for her. She's totally secure in the relationship. She's not insecure, like I explained that you should be, that you should make her before, right? She's not insecure, and because of her security, yeah. A low tier girl in your life, she's going to do the exact same thing, okay? The exact same thing. She is going to make it clear to you that she is with you, okay? Now, of course, if a low tier girl starts hassling you, dump her instantly, okay? Yeah, because, or let me phrase that. If any girl ever hassles you, hassles you and just annoys you, just say, look, if you keep up this way, I'm going to dump you. If she's low tier, she's going to rein it in ultra fast because she knows that you're the best thing that she can get. You see? And this issue of leveraging low tier women to get higher tier women, it's a bastard move. Yeah, sure. No apologies. Do not be afraid to be an asshole, because we are talking about your children. We are talking about your the family you're going to build. Okay? And if that means that you have to be an asshole, so be it. Let me put it to you this way. Suppose there's this ladder of relationships whereby you can have 4 girlfriends in this ladder, and the first is low tier. The second one is mid tier. The third is like higher tier, and the fourth is like a Victoria's Secret model, and she wants to have a bunch of babies with you, and she's absolutely crazy about you. And once she meets you, she's blind to every other man on the face of the earth. Okay, that kind of like top tier. Those are the 4 steps. Okay, Now, imagine that that is your destiny, but in order to achieve that destiny, you had to be kind of like a prick or an asshole with the other three. Would you do it? Fuck yeah. Yeah, as simple as that. Okay? What's there to debate? If it means that you have to be like a prick to the low tier girl to be with the higher tier girl, the mid tier girl, girl number two on this ladder, and then you have to, cheat on girl number two and be with girl number three, and then do the same thing to get to number four, but number four is like aces. You'd be a fool not to. And that's the thing that our culture sort of like inculcates into young men, that they have to be a nice guy. Okay? And you're going to notice something else too, that the other people who say that you should be a nice guy all the time are assholes. Okay? That's true. Guys who are assholes, you know, they're always like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should be a nice guy. Don't be a prick. Don't be this, that, the other. They say that all the time. Why? To eliminate competition, fuckstick. That's what they're doing. That's what I do, you know? Yeah. You don't want competition. So you say, oh, you should stick to your girlfriend, that ugly bitch that you're sleeping with, right? And not try to go for the hottie that I'm going after. Of course, they don't say that outright, but that's what they're basically saying implicitly when they tell you, oh, aren't you happy with your relationship? You should stick to your relationship and just gut it out. Yeah, okay. Assholes tell nice guys to keep on being nice, and assholes get the hot women. That's how it works. And it's very unpleasant to nice guys in particular to be told this, because my nice guys want to believe that by being nice they will get what they want. No nice guy ever got what he wanted by being nice. Never. Not once. Never. You can be as nice as you want all the time and you will not get shit in life, because the nice guy doesn't win. It's as simple as that. It's a truism, okay? And so you have to be thinking to yourself, I want to have a really hot girl. I want to have a really hot woman that whose company I enjoy, who I think is smart, who has the same goals as I do, having kids, right? I want that. And so how do you achieve it? You cannot jump from 0 to 100 miles an hour in a single step. It's impossible. You have to work your way up to it. And that's what I'm telling you. Now, here's another thing too. See, in contemporary society, you ask, how come so many people divorce, and, how come so many marriages break up and whatnot? Well, a lot of times they say, well, they divorce, and kids of divorce are all fucked up, which is very true. But you'll notice that most relationships, they don't have kids. And that's a key issue. If you're in a relationship with a woman and both of you do not want kids eventually, the relationship is doomed to failure. The only time that a companionate marriage works, that is when two people get together and they don't want to have kids, it's usually when they're older. When they're older and probably already had their kids from a previous relationship. Okay? I mean, I can tell you right now about my own mother. She got married a second time to this very nice gentleman in 1996. And they're still married. Okay? 25 years later, coming up on 25 years. And they're still married and everything is hunky-dory. Of course, when they got married, she was 40. Yeah, no, excuse me. She was 50. Sorry about that. She was 50 when she got married in 96. And he was 58. Yeah, yeah. And they're still going strong. Good on them. And they're elderly now. Yeah. And they love each other very much, and they're very happy, and it's very fortunate for them. But you see, that kind of companionate marriage, of getting married and knowing that you're not going to have kids, right? That's for older people. You're a young guy. If you're with a woman and she doesn't want to have kids, and she's serious about it, she's not fucking around, or she's not being just an immature little idiot, right? If she's serious about not having kids, then you have to understand that that relationship will eventually end, okay? But not because of it should you not enjoy the relationship. Let me explain. Suppose, on this tier, this ladder, right? We're talking about like a bottom tier woman, level number 1, a mid-tier woman, level number 2, a top-tier woman, level number 3, and a really, one in a million type woman, level number 4. Okay, that's the ladder. Suppose you are on ladder number 2, rung number 2 of the ladder, with woman number 2, who's the mid-tier girl. She's a mid-tier girl, and maybe she's like a big brain, and she's studying to be whatever, like a doctor or PhD, whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter. Okay. Now that girl, she might say, I don't want to have kids. My career is more important. And you can like talk about it and just suss her out a little bit, right? And you realize after about 2-3 months of dating her that she's real serious about it. And you want to have kids. Now, believe me, even if you're thinking to yourself, no, I don't want to have kids, you do. It gives you so much satisfaction. It gives you a reason to live. And that's the point. Because what will happen is that if you're with a woman who does not want to have kids, then you're just hanging out together. You're just roommates. Roommates who fuck, but that's it. Because you're not going to have a shared goal. Of course, you're going to like it when she does well in her career, and she'll probably, congratulate you when you do well in your career or your business or whatever. But there isn't going to be a shared goal. Okay? And it's as simple as that. Because see, a man and a woman cleave together, that is, truly cement the bond between them when they have a big goal in common. You guys saw that show House of Cards, right? With Kevin Spacey and what's her face, Robin Wright, before the whole scandal when it was early, right? They were married, but they didn't have kids. In fact, she had an abortion or 2 or 3, God knows, right? She was a bloodthirsty bitch, right? But the thing is, see, they had a common goal. They wanted to see him be a power broker in Washington, possibly president, right? They had that shared goal of his career, okay? And she had her reasons because she derived power from his position, and he admired her because she was so smart and all the rest of it could help her, right? And so they did have a shared goal. It was perverse, because they're anti-heroes. They were nasty people. They were the villains of the show, right? But even though they were nasty people, they had this shared goal, and therefore it created a bond, a true bond. Now, of course, it's a TV show. It's absurd and ridiculous, but it highlights the point. You have to have a shared goal. And having children is that shared goal. And it can give you both a great deal of satisfaction, so long as both of you recognize that it's the same goal, okay? That having kids and bringing them up right and positioning them so that they succeed in life is the goal that you both want. And that the things that you do insofar as your career, there's a clear communication between the two of you that what you do in your career is to improve the shared goal, you see? A lot of times you'll notice that there are couples that have a business in common, and they are very, very tight because of that business, because they're constantly thinking about it and worrying about it and trying to make it improve, okay? The shared goal is key. Now, if you're with a woman and she's a professional woman, she's getting a PhD or an MD or whatever the fuck, or she is a junior professor or rising up the academic hierarchy, or she's a doctor in residency or whatever the fuck, right? She's on her career, but she has no intention of having kids. You will never have that common goal. The relationship is doomed to failure by definition, okay? Because there will never be something where you are both striving towards. Because I mean, if she's like a doctor, how the fuck are you going to help her be a better doctor? Apart from like listening to her problems and giving her a massage and making her tea, there isn't shitloads that you're going to be able to do to make her life better, or let me phrase it, to make it so that she can achieve her goal. You can comfort her, but that's it. And ditto for you, if you have some business that you're doing, yeah, or some career or whatever the fuck, you can talk to her about it, strategize with her, sure, but it's not going to help you much other than moral support. But if you have a goal in common, i.e. kids, then it's a different story altogether. Then it's completely different. You see? And that's why it's so important. And that's why when you know that a woman does not want to have kids, or perhaps you don't want to have kids either, I think it's a mistake and I think it's foolish. I'm talking from experience here, because there was a time in my life, of course, that I didn't want to have kids. But now I'm like, fuck yeah, it's fantastic. But anyway, If you realize that you will not have a shared goal with a woman, then you have to realize the relationship is doomed, inevitably. And therefore, you have to be leveraging that relationship to get somebody better. Simple as that. Be practical about it. Oh man, what the fuck? For some reason, the fucking music app turned on in the middle of the fucking show. What the fuck? I don't understand, because that's happened before, by the way. Sorry about that. That was a random interruption because shit happens here because I'm my own producer. But you understand my point, okay? Let me ask you if you all understood. Raise your hand if you get it, that you have to have that common goal, or else it's just not going to happen. If you don't have that common goal, then understand that the relationship you're in is only useful to get a better relationship, because it will end inevitably. Okay? I think that most of you, well, not all of you, a few of you have raised your hand. Thank you. Let me put them all down. But you see the point. It's so important. It's so important to understand this, because so many guys, how can I put it? So many guys are retards insofar as relationships are concerned. And look, I was a retard too at different points in my life. Okay. So I tend to think of it as nobody gave me at the time some practical guidance as to what is the point of a relationship. I thought, oh, I want to get a girlfriend. And I never thought to myself, why do I want to get a girlfriend? What's the purpose of having a girlfriend? And it's as simple as that, of just asking yourself, why do I want to have a girlfriend? What's the purpose? I want regular sex. I want companionship. I want shared goals. That's love. But you have to figure out what it is. And you have to figure out if the person you are with is going to help you achieve those things. Okay? And sometimes you will be willing to sacrifice one of those goals in order to leverage that relationship to a better one later on. You're with some girl who's sort of like a porker, right? She's not very attractive. I mean, she's okay looking, but not really. She's kind of like fat, right? Uh, why are you with her? To get a better woman, yeah. To like get laid on a regular basis so that you're not a spurg, and leverage that relationship to a better woman later. You have to do that quickly. Quickly, how long? I don't know. 2 months, 3 months, 4 months tops. If you're dating a porker after 6 months that you don't find attractive, you don't find interesting, you gotta ask yourself, what the fuck are you doing? You gotta get up off your ass and move. You see what I mean? Because, see, it's one thing to be dating somebody as a precursor to somebody better later on, but it's another thing to get lazy. And that happens. That happens a lot of times. A guy, he's dating some girl and she's good enough, and he stays with her. She's not really as good as he could get her. He could get better, but he gets lazy. And that happens all the time. That happens all the time, that you just decide, hey, I'm with this girl. She's good enough. Yeah, I could get better. Yes, I could, but I'm not gonna bother. I'm just gonna stick with what I got because I'm lazy. Okay? That happens all the fucking time. There's this guy I knew in high school. Let's call him S. I don't want to put out his real name. And S, right? He dated some bottom of the barrel girl, just real bottom of the barrel, right? And he was a good looking kid, just blonde, tall, good looking, a little bit stupid, but not that stupid. He could get sort of like a decent enough job and whatever. And he wound up dating this bottom of the barrel chick, right? And he married her because he was just too fucking lazy to get somebody better. He was with her for like 2-3 years or whatever, and then finally she convinced him, because she wasn't a fool. She knew what she had. She knew that he was way, way outside her league. And she latched onto him. She put the claws in him, and he was just a lazy bum and didn't do anything about it, and and just slid into a marriage. And then later he's like, oh man, what did I do? But it was too late. She pumped out a couple of kids. He's stuck with her. Fucking idiot. Don't be like that. Be smart. Understand what's going on. Okay, you are trying out people. You are trying out people, you're trying out relationships, and you have to leverage your relationships from one to the next. You have to monkey branch. Yeah, you're driving a clunker, and then you're moving up to a mid-tier car, and then to a high-end car, and then to a fucking Rolls Royce. That's how it works. It's not complicated. And you want to be dating somebody uh, to 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 experience that progression. Yeah. And here's the thing. See, when you're alone, when you're with no one, you are going to be desperate and panicky. And that's why you want to go for the low tier woman. And I know a lot of guys who are desperate and panicky, they start aiming higher and higher, and it always blows up in their face. Always, no exception. Because it's like getting into the ring with Conor McGregor after having had a single boxing lesson. You're going to get the shit kicked out of you. Yeah, because the top tier girl, that Victoria's Secret model, right? If you go straight up to her with no intermediate steps, she's gonna laugh in your face. Because you will not have acquired game. You won't have acquired the self-confidence, the chutzpah. That's a great word from the Jews. The chutzpah. It's a great word. Yeah, it captures it so clearly, that visceral sense of like having balls. You will not, because it's not just having balls, it's having the self-confidence to back it up. So you go up and shoot for the moon for some Victoria's Secret hottie, right? And she's going to know that you're a paper tiger, that there's nothing there, that you're being all brassy and bold, but you don't have the real like weight behind you. You see what I'm saying? And that's the point. That's the key. You have to work up to it. Okay. And so many guys just don't understand this. And so many guys who are, how could I put it? They are mid to upper tier guys who could get real good trim. I mean, top tier girls, but they don't understand the virtues of patience. You have to be patient. You have to understand the process. You are trying out one girl and you're with her for a while and you're leveraging her to a better girl. Always thinking of monkey branching, always. Okay? When you get to the girl that you physically desire, that you have that sense of complicity and companionship, where you can tell her about some book that you read that really moved you or really made you think. And she can tell you about something that's happened to her or read about or whatever, and you can appreciate it and find it really interesting. And when you to have, you go out with other people and something happens and you have that look like, oh, just like that time, when you have that complicity, and when you get to that point of like, having that serious conversation that you have with a hot woman, saying, this is what I want. I want to have a bunch of kids. I want to have this kind of life. I want to be doing this. I want to achieve this in my career. And she's like on board with that. Then you're golden. Then you're on your way. Okay. A lot of times guys fail to do this, not because they're stupid, but because they haven't thought through the issue. The thing happens too is that your hormones, your desire for sex, for companionship, your loneliness, they all conspire sometimes to make you not think as clearly as you should. And that's a big problem. You are so lonely and so desperate that you wind up hooking up with the wrong person. Or let me phrase it, you wind up hooking up with the wrong person permanently, instead of realizing, this person I'm with, it's just to leverage to the next one, to the better one, to the one that really fits me. You see? Yeah. And finally, I just have to emphasize this. The woman you're with always has to know that you have options, always. That's how you guarantee loyalty. That's how you guarantee that she's not going to step out on you or anything like that. Every girl who ever steps out on her guy usually steps out on the guy because she knows that he can't do shit. She knows that she is the dominant person in the relationship. That's how it is. Because see, a girl or a woman who knows that her man can fuck around on her and be with other girls, attractive girls, hot girls, she never steps out on him. Never. Okay? The only time actually that, scratch that, the only time that that happens is in like these weird mutually self-destructive relationships that are all drama and screaming matches. And those relationships between men and women where both of them cheat all the time and shit like that, that's usually like some weird psychodrama that's not particularly normal. Most women, okay, I'm talking 90% of them, if they know that their guy, that their man can fuck some other girl and easily fuck some other girl, they toe the line and they don't fuck around. Yeah, it's that way. Have you ever thought to yourself why a woman in a harem in the past and in some Muslim cultures and whatnot, the women in the harem don't fuck around on the guy? It's not so much of social pressure. No, no. A lot of times what it has to do is that she knows that he can get other women, and so she just stays in line. Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah, read up on it. It's really fucking fascinating. Okay. But anyway, I just want to make it clear that you can achieve the woman that you want. And you can pick a smart woman, a high quality woman, but you have to understand the process. Okay. You are building up to the woman who will be, quote unquote, the one. Okay. And you always have to be focused on those three issues or four issues: mutual desire, that companionship and complicity, shared goals, and she always has to know that you have options. Okay. Now, there were some other topics that that came up in the post. I'll just enumerate them right now. These are going to be future topics because they're pretty long. Okay. Stephen and Dusan wanted me to talk about communism. Now, I actually know quite a bit about communism because I studied it. And also in Chile, they tried to implement a communist state during the Salvador Allende regime in 1970 to 1973. And my extended family, my grandparents and all that, they told me tons of stuff about that. And of course, I lived in Chile, not during the communist period, but during the fascist period of the Augusto Pinochet. And so I saw it, and the comparisons and contrasts between communism and fascism are really interesting. So I'll probably do like a webinar about that because it's really interesting. How to pick a mountaintop. That was Thomas asked. I think it was Thomas Levy. The issue of how to pick a mountaintop. Let me just, I'm looking at my notes. Hang on a second. How to pick a mountaintop if I feel dead inside is what Thomas Levy asked. Okay. Thomas, are you there? I'm going to look around for you and see if no, Thomas is not here. But see, this notion of like, well, if you feel dead inside and you have no motivation for anything, right? What you should do is just start working out and sleeping right. Okay. Because I've noticed that if you're just sleeping right, like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, things straighten out real quick. Okay. And I've noticed in my own case, because of this quarantine and whatnot, I'm realizing I was stressed out. I was just not sleeping right. And now deliberately sleeping right, I'm in a much better mood and just much more greater equanimity, just more relaxed. I'm just fine. Okay. But anyway, how to pick a mountaintop. That is a really kind of like an impossible question to answer. Okay. Because it's different for each person. And it's a different road for each person. And a lot of times it's not so much an issue of like you have to pick a mountaintop. It's rather being aware that you are looking for one will often be enough for you to notice it. Perhaps not immediately, but in time. Because a lot of times what's going on is that, see, your inability to consciously think of something, or your unwillingness to consciously think of something, many times makes you lose direction. If you're aware of where you want to go, not that you're like grinding on about it all the time, but just like generally aware of more or less where you want to go, you're going to get there a lot easier than if you're just like randomly wandering. Okay. If you're thinking to yourself, you know, I want to get a wife. What kind of wife do I want to get? I mean, what do I want? I want her attractive. I want her nice and have a good time with her. We want to have shared goals. And, you know, the shared goal is, you know, having a nice family, right? Then you start working your way back insofar as, okay, how do I achieve this? You see? Any mountaintop that you might have, you know, you'll come across it if you're aware that you're looking for a mountaintop. And once you stumble across it, you'll sort of like, oh, that's the mountaintop I want to achieve, and how would I achieve it? And you work your way backward, see? Because that's how you achieve every mountaintop. I'm talking like physical mountaintop and metaphorical mountaintop, as I'm discussing here. You have to be uh, generally kind of like aware that you're looking for a mountaintop, and once you latch onto it, you work your way back. And sometimes you come across a mountaintop and you realize, no way I can achieve it. No way. Now, to give a foolish and silly one, right? When I was young, I wanted to be a rock star, right? I didn't have any talent, right? I couldn't play the guitar, I couldn't sing, you know? And so, yeah, that was a mountaintop. And then I quickly realized in order to achieve that, I needed things that I just did not have and would never possess. And so, of course, you know, I discarded that particular mountaintop. But you see the process, see? You have to be thinking about it, not freaking out about it, not obsessing about it, but just like be aware that you're looking for it. It's sort of like think about it in these terms. Think of it like you're you're in your room and you're thinking to yourself that you're going to go to the kitchen, right? And you're going to see if there's something to eat. You're not focusing on anything specific. You're just going to be looking around, or better, you go to a supermarket or something, and you say, "I'm going to get something to eat," and you walk into the supermarket. And you don't know what exactly it's going to be, but you sort of like wander around the supermarket. This is a better metaphor, yeah. You wander around the supermarket and you go through the aisles, you know, maybe a guard starts thinking that you're going to shoplift or some shit like that, right? But you wander around and you're hungry, but you don't quite know what you want until you finally find it. Yeah. But how is that process possible? Well, you got to go into the supermarket. See? See, because if you're like wandering the streets, right, there's no food place around at all. So, you know, you're going to be hungry and what do you want? I don't know. Could you answer that question if you're wandering in the streets? No. You got to go into the supermarket. You got to look around. You got to be aware that you want to get something to eat. You see? I hope this metaphor helps. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think I answered that pretty well. So that will be stripped from future topics. Now, somebody asked, how do you start a business and what are good business practices? Well, Jesus, starting a business, you know, that covers a lot of ground. Okay, I mean, you're talking about like how to start a corporation or you know, the legal process. That's different in every place, right? Are you talking about how do you start a business and so far as it's just like, you know, you see where somebody would pay money for something that you can deliver. That's basically how you start a business. When I was in high school, it was my senior year in high school, and my parents had discovered pot in my room. Okay. And yeah, I was grounded. They cut my allowance, you know, it was all kinds of trouble, right? And so what happened was that I was in all kinds of trouble and no money, and so I couldn't buy cigarettes. And I was like getting the DTs because I couldn't get cigarettes, right? And so anyway, there was this English class that I had to take, and the fucking professor was just a fucking idiot. But he made us write these short stories, one every 2 weeks, if I recall correctly. And so every 2 weeks, we'd have to deliver a story. And so one time I started writing a story, okay, for this stupid class. And I wrote like half of it, and I didn't know how it ended or whatever. And so I had like another idea, I started writing that, and I got halfway through it and wasn't sure how it ended. And so I started writing one, writing the other, ping-ponging, and then finally I had two stories, right? And I mentioned this to a friend of mine, and the friend of mine didn't want to do the fucking story. He hadn't gotten around to it. It was like the day before we had to deliver. And he said, I'll buy you the fucking story, one of your fucking stories. And I'm like, sure, give me a carton of cigarettes, I said. And he's like, done. You see? And that's how I started my little cottage industry. This is a true story, by the way. This is how I started a cottage industry of being a writer in high school. I'd write these short stories. I started writing a couple, and then I eventually started writing like a half a dozen every time there was a delivery, right? And everybody loved it because everybody got A's except me, because the teacher knew that I had lived in the United States and I spoke English fluently, and so he was just a lot tougher on in terms of grading me than the other guys, right? That was just very frustrating. But anyway, everybody got A's and I got, you know, money. See, I discovered a little niche. Now, that's what you have to do. You have to look around and see where somebody would pay you money for something. And by the way, the reason everybody would pay me in high school because of this, because in Chile, your the equivalent of the SAT, which you took at the end of your senior year, was much more important in terms of guaranteeing you a placing in a good college than your grades in some crappy English class in your senior year. Because like the tests counted for 50% of your entrance to a university, and your grades counted for the other 50%. So, and it was the last 4 years of high school. You're, you know, a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, or the equivalent in Chile, right? And so each of those basically was 12.5 percentage points that counted towards you getting into university. So who gives a shit if you get a good grade or not in the English class? Or why would you waste your time doing some stupid fucking story? And so that's why everybody was so willing to do this, right? And getting an A even better. And so they paid me. And because they had big allowances, because you know it was a rich kid's high school. And so that's how I made money. I made a lot of money until I got caught. But I got caught because of a stupid mistake, but that's for another story. That's not important here. The point is, see, I found something that other people wanted, and they were willing to pay money for it, good money for it. So of course I fucking delivered, you see? And that's what you have to do. That's how you start a business. You find something that other people want to pay money for. It's not that complicated, okay? And yeah. Now, good business practice. Okay, you have customers, and you have suppliers. Okay, a good rule of thumb is with your customers, always deliver. And if you're not going to deliver, if you're going to be late on delivery, okay, tell them like way before. Tell them exactly why. And you'd be surprised. Most of the time, your clients will be very understanding. Okay. I mean, think of it with you guys on Patreon. Sometimes I've been late or things have gotten fucked up for whatever reason. And I make it clear to you guys what's going on and why. And the response is always the same. It's always terrific, always no problem. Because see, I'm being very transparent and I'm telling you, oh, you know, I had this fuck up. Like for instance, remember when webinar number 3 didn't record properly and there was no webinar 3 recording? Nobody got pissed off. Nobody got pissed off because they understood, you know, there was a fuck up with the system. It didn't record properly, you know, no big deal. And I said, I'm going to redo it. And that one, I'm going to record it up the wazoo to make sure that it's captured and that you guys can later hear it and whatnot. And I did, and everybody was fine and no problem. Nobody got angry. Nobody threw a hissy fit or any shit like that, because you, as my customers, I made it clear what was the problem. And that's the point. See, whatever business you have, make it clear. If there's a fuck up, most people are very understanding. No, not most people. The vast majority of people are very understanding. Okay? And that's something that a lot of times people don't realize, that they will be very understanding if you cannot deliver or don't deliver, so long as you tell them beforehand. Tell them with enough time before that it doesn't fuck up their shit. Because perhaps you're making some widget, and they're going to use your widget for their assembly line for whatever fuck product they're building, right? So if you tell them with plenty of anticipation, they'll be able to adjust and it won't interrupt their workflow. If you tell them the night before, they're going to be fucking pissed. You see? And so that's why you always have to bring people into the loop who are your customers. Now, insofar as your your suppliers, right? Your suppliers, one of the questions that was asked by Shalond was basically, how much do you negotiate with your suppliers? Well, that's a good question. See, you always want to be negotiating aggressively but fairly, okay? Now, what does that mean? See, when you realize that you could get a better deal, but you will squeeze them out so bad, you got to ask yourself, do I want this relationship long-term or is it just a one-off? Okay. If it's a long-term relationship, then you should not squeeze the guy that bad. Okay. Perhaps make it clear to the guy that you could squeeze him if you wanted to, but you're not going to because you're not an asshole and you value his relationship, the relationship with him. Okay. How can I put it? You don't act like a pussy, but at the same time, you don't act like a hard ass. Because it's been my experience, for instance, that whenever I've dealt with some guy who's an asshole, I'll deal with him, but the second I can get rid of him, I will. No question. Okay? The second I have a guy who's just a complete and colossal prick, I'll just cut him out. Okay? I'm not going to do business with him again Because why would I bother? He's an asshole. He's going to make my life miserable. Okay? Yeah, so don't do that. Be smart. Understand? Like if you can squeeze somebody, do you squeeze them? No, because sometimes squeezing them is counterproductive. I think that's basically the notion. Okay? And finally, there was an issue of like my experience in Hollywood, and I'll tell you real quick, okay? My experiences in Hollywood, you know, I was a low-level writer. Okay, I did okay. I made a living, which in Hollywood is very, very difficult. So I guess I was like way ahead of 99% of the people who were in Hollywood, in that I was making a decent living as a writer in Hollywood. Hollywood is an awful place. All the people are liars and just insincere. Okay. Um, like for instance, the whole Harvey Weinstein thing of him banging actresses and whatnot and assaulting them and so on and cajoling them into giving them oral sex and all that shit. I heard about that crap back in 96, 97, and I was a fucking nobody. Everybody knew about it. I mean, I was like at the bottom of the totem pole. Yeah, I was earning a living, but I was like way low man on the totem pole of writers in Hollywood. And even I had heard of that story. Even I knew that the reason Gwyneth Paltrow got an Oscar for Best Actress in Shakespeare in Love was because Harvey Weinstein was like, you know, lobbying for her so hard because she was the only girl who Harvey Weinstein had ever had give him a blowjob and made him come twice in a single session. Yeah, that's the truth about Gwyneth Paltrow. She was aces at giving head. Yeah, and I knew that story. I knew that Gretchen Mol, who's this gorgeous, gorgeous actress. She was so pretty. She was blonde. I mean, she was like this alabaster figure, really. I mean, Jesus Christ, she could have been a Greek statue, right? And the only reason she was on the cover of Vanity Fair was because, you know, Harvey Weinstein was banging her. Everybody knew that. She was like, didn't have any talent whatsoever. She was not a particularly good actress. She was just very, very pretty, and he was fucking her. And, you know, that's how she got ahead. Everybody knew this back in the 90s. But see, nobody said fucking shit. And they didn't say anything for decades. Decades, motherfucker. Yeah, that's Hollywood for you. That in a nutshell is Hollywood. Hollywood, they will they will not object to the most indecent immorality imaginable if they perceive that the person committing these indecencies and immoralities is more powerful than them, or perhaps they might need them in the future. They do not stand on principle, not a one of them. And all these fucksticks in Hollywood that say that, oh, you know, I have my principles and this and that, they're liars. They're liars. They don't have any fucking principles. They'll give up their own mother in order to get a part. They'll give up, you know, any principle they have in order to direct some movie. No, none of them do. Okay, none of them. They're all corrupt individuals. So that's my experience in Hollywood. Okay, and you know, you could say that, oh, you know, Coach is going like that because you know, this, that, the other, blah blah, you know, sour grapes or some shit like that. No, I'm not saying it. It's the truth. Okay, I'm very happy with the life that I'm living. It's very enjoyable, and I have a good time, and you know, and I'm not hurting for money, and so, you know, it's not sour grapes or it's nothing like that. It's the truth. It's a horrible place, and I think that that's why I just can't stand it, and I don't really want to go back to LA, even though I'd love to be directing movies, but I just hate LA. I just hate it so much because it's full of these people. You know, they're like ticks. Ticks. I mean, imagine a bed full of ticks. And it's disgusting. Now, would you want to lie in that bed full of ticks and fleas and whatnot? Forget about the fact that they'll bite you and, you know, you get all these rashes and God knows what, right? Forget about that fact. It's just disgusting per se, right? Would you like to lie in such a bed? Yes, no, maybe? Yeah, probably not, right? Because it's disgusting. That's the thing. Okay. So anyway, yeah, let me get to questions, you know, because I've been rambling on as usual for an hour and a half. So let me, oh, okay. Here's Tim. Let me find Tim. Tim Monk Monk Monkbatar. I'm so sorry. I'm fucking up your name pretty badly, Tim.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hi, I'm
Hello,
good. How
you
are you?
there?
Yeah, you pronounced it pretty well last time.
Hello?
I'm Mongolian. So, yeah.
Hello?
Hello? Mic. Is my mic working? Hello?
I can't hear
Hello?
you, Tim. Uh,
Hello?
Let me just,
Hello?
I'm checking my headphones and they're working properly.
Hello?
Uh, I
Hello?
think that you've got a problem there. Let me put everybody's
Hello?
hand down. Does anybody else hear
Is my
Tim?
mic
Because I
working?
don't hear a thing. Raise your hand if you do
Oh,
hear. Oh, you do hear him. Okay, that's not good. Oh man. Okay, so I am not hearing Tim at all. Hang on a second.
yeah.
Let me
It
mute
showed.
you and I'm going down to the guy next just below him, Trond. Trond, do you hear me? Or can you speak up? No, you can't. Okay. Uh, Jesus Christ, man, this sucks because I don't hear Tim at all. Oh, oh shit. Mr. Blue, I know you always have your setup real good. Mr. Blue, are you there? Hello, Mr. Blue. Mr.
Hey,
Blue, are you
Coach.
there?
Yeah, hey, can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Yeah, it says that you're talking, but I don't hear anything.
Oh, no.
Raise your hand if you can hear Mr. Blue. Oh man, fuck, 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 fuck. Okay, let me just hang on. Mr. Blue, can you talk again, please? Maybe this has fixed it.
Yeah, how about now?
Oh shit. Okay. No, nobody. I cannot hear anything that you're saying. So this
Oh,
is what I'm
no.
going to do. I am going to quit this webinar right now, and then I'm going to fire up a new one and put the link on the Patreon page, and we'll have a Q&A on this new webinar, because I suspect that this webinar that I did, it just, because when I started it, it usually says, you know, the webinar is starting and stuff like that, but this time nothing happened. And so I think it was the webinar software, and I think it was my fault because I turned on the webinar software and then later plugged in my earphones. And so, yeah, it's obviously my fault. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to quit this webinar now, and then I'm going to set up a new one and put the link in the Patreon as a separate post. You'll see it. It'll come up in 2 minutes. Okay. And so that's how we'll square this away, because I really am interested in what you guys have to say. Okay. Okay. So I'll see you in 2 minutes.